Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the grand finale of the 25th celebratory anniversary season of Talking Volumes. Look, there's people all the way up there, everywhere. We are thrilled to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Kelly Gordon. I am one half of the books team at NPR News, the other half, of course, being Carrie Miller. I'm her producer. We produce big books and bold ideas that hopefully you listen to every Friday at 11. Catch us on the podcast. We have all sorts of great book talks, including a rebroadcast, slightly edited on the radio version, of Tonight with Kate. So it is my honor to welcome you and also to thank our sponsors because we're so glad that they support all things books. We have Becker Furniture World, the Duff Endowment, Episcopal Homes, and Lunds and Byerly's. So they support all things readers. Thank you. Yes. They make this possible, and we are so grateful for them. I'd also like to, of course, thank our partner in all this, the Minnesota Star-Tribune. And tonight we have senior lifestyle editor Connie Nelson here. Hi, Connie.
Hi, everybody. How are ya?
So you have a few things to say.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to see you guys here, and I'm thrilled because I got to meet Kate DiCamillo. Total fangirl moment. I've never met her before, but I have read about her in the Star-Tribune. We've done a couple profiles of her, and our books editor, Chris Hewitt, did one of the best lines I've ever read about her, and it goes like this. If Kate DiCamillo wrote a book about a box of Swiffer refills, it would probably make us chortle and sob about Lent. Is that great? So I'm just thrilled to be here tonight. Kate is known for her young adult books, and I was sort of like a not-so-young middle-aged adult when I started reading Kate. I didn't get to read her when I was a kid. But the minute I read them, I fell in love with Mercy, and I fell in love with Ulysses, and I fell in love with all of them. So I kind of sometimes think that young adult is a misnomer. I mean, she writes books for all of us. This is the last of this season, the 25th season of Talking Volumes, but the Star-Tribune is just going to keep on writing its Sunday stories about books, which we publish online all of the time. And coming up, we've got a couple of really great ones. One of them I love that Chris Hewitt did was, it's a feature about this Texas professor who wrote a book about how she lived her life according to the Mary Tyler Moore Show. We've also got a roundup of children's picture books. We've got a roundup of new graphic novels. And we've also got local author Shannon Gibney's children's picture book about George Floyd. It's a beautiful piece that I would encourage you to take a look at when you get a chance. Also, the 21st, we have our holiday books package. That's 4 pages filled with nothing but books. So keep reading and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Names that are not unfamiliar to the Big Books and Bold Ideas audience as well. So we are so excited that Kate is back tonight, Minnesota's own Kate DiCamillo. So let's welcome Carrie Miller to the stage. We'll get the evening started.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out to support Talking Volumes. It's a big deal to us to have people show up as season ticket holders and people who are experiencing Talking Volumes for the very first time. So it's wonderful. If I met you and I had a chance to thank you personally, good. If I didn't, please know I am grateful for your support for the season. Has this 25th season of Talking Volumes flown by for you as it has for me? I mean, the anniversary it seemed like we just launched it, and now we're ending it, and our season finale guest has also been living in the whirlwind this year. Kate DiCamillo has published 3 new books this year, and another book in paperback. 4 books with the name Kate DiCamillo on them have each landed in young readers' hands this year. I mean, but what is she doing with all her free time, you ask? Hey. And next year, 2 new books, and Kate celebrates the 25th anniversary of Because of Winn-Dixie. I know, we're gonna talk about it tonight because this is my chance to talk about that amazing book. And we had a little conversation about it down in the green room about the movie, and so we'll chat about that. Now, if you've ever been in the audience when Kate DiCamillo has appeared here before, I heard snickers over here. They already know, Kate. You know that she is the master of modesty, the diva of deflection, and she told me her trick backstage, which is when she doesn't want to answer a question, she asks me a question, so I'm ready for this. She's also the Empress of Enchantment and the Wizard of Wonder. Please welcome Kate DiCamillo back to the stage of the Fitzgerald Theater.
That's not fair play. That's what that is. I mean, that was beautiful and also quite accurate in the deflection thing. Yeah. Although no one has ever applied the word diva to me ever.
Really?
Yeah. Never.
Come on.
Yeah. No.
But
No.
that thing about deflection is true.
Yeah, no, that was
isn't
a
it?
very psychologically astute assessment of me. Yeah.
She gave it up downstairs. She was like, you know what I do? I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
I didn't give it up. I mean, you would not believe what happens in the green room. I mean, it's like it was very tense down there. And yeah, okay.
It is not.
Yeah.
We sat around and talked about our deepest, darkest secrets. And then I was making all kinds of mental notes and promising to bring it all to you because I want you to enjoy it too. Okay.
Okay, now the notes
Here we go.
which she has and which she guarded fiercely down
That's
there in
right.
the green room. So, okay.
The last time Kate was here, she tried every which way to see my, I write like 10 questions and then I make a couple notes, and she tried every which way to see them. And I had to guard them, and I was ready for you this time.
Yeah, you were. Boy,
So,
yep.
yeah. Would we be here if not for India Opal Bologna?
Nope.
We wouldn't, would we?
No, and look, you made me tear up already. Yeah,
Really?
no, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yay.
because it is so. It's still so unbelievable to me, and it is. I was, I worked. I can't see y'all, and besides, it's going to be radio. But I was going to say, how many of you remember the Bookman down in the Warehouse District, the book distributor, yay, yes. And I that's where I was working when I wrote because of Winn-Dixie, and being in that environment, seeing what came in and out of the warehouse, it served the whole upper Midwest as a book distributor. I got a very realistic idea of how many copies of a middle grade novel would sell, and so. Winn-Dixie, I thought if I was really lucky, I would sell 5,000 copies. If I was really, really lucky.
Really?
Yeah.
And it has sold how many?
I don't know what it is now. The last time I asked this question was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. I was in Washington, D.C., and somebody asked, and somebody from Candlewick, Tracy Miracle, was there with me. And again, I cried. She said 11 million. Yeah, right?
Oh my gosh.
And it just, right?
Yeah.
See? And I cried then and I'm crying now. And so yes, no, I would not be sitting here without India Opal Bologna and Winn-Dixie. It was like everything that's happened to me as a writer has happened because of Winn-Dixie. Yeah, thank you, yeah.
What do you think you know about her now?
What do I know about India Opal Bologna?
25 years later that you didn't know or maybe fully appreciate when you created her?
Well, I was very aware from the beginning because it's a first-person book. People would assume that I was India Opal Bologna, and so I would have to disabuse them of that notion because she's a much she's a wiser kid than I was. She's less afraid than I was, and so it's one of those things where I learned from her something about how to be in the world from a fictional character, a fictional 10-year-old that I made up.
Is that true?
Yes. I mean, why would I say it? I mean, Of all
Because
the things
it sounds good.
Of all the things to call me on. It's like,
I don't believe you.
Yeah,
no,
no.
that was more of a wow.
yeah, no, and it happens. That's the beautiful thing about writing, That's the beautiful thing is it, and it extending that, it's like not only creating the character and being with the character changed me, but then that book going out into the world and how people received that book changed me again, and I got to be a part of people's lives in a way that even if I'm not directly aware of it, I was connected to people. It made a family for me. So
Why do you think she moves? And in a minute, I'm gonna read the thing that always brings tears to my eyes that she says.
Tears to your eyes. Now
I know,
we're
can
in
you believe
business.
it?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
But why do you think she moves, and not just young readers, but their parents and people that are going to go back, I assume, 25 years later and read the book? Why does she move people so much?
Why does she move people so much? Because she's honest and loving and hopeful and vulnerable. There's a wonderful, we were talking about the movie when we were in the green room, and there's a wonderful moment in the movie that's not in the book where she says to the preacher, I want to understand, when they're talking about her mother not being there. And that line is not in the book, but that's part of why everybody responds, because she wants to understand. She's open. She's vulnerable. Do you have a better theory?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's.
And I'm never very. It's like I can't. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I don't know the book. It sounds very disingenuous, but I don't know the book as well as a reader knows the book. I
don't think that sounds disingenuous.
It's because it becomes yours,
right.
And so it's like I can talk about the experience of bringing that girl and that dog into the world, but what it becomes when it's in your hands and why it moves you is unique to you.
Right. And it sounds like having the world take the book and then bring it back to you has shaped some of the way that you perceive the book?
It's shaped how I perceive the book. I don't know, it's shaped how I've moved through the world, because of how that book was received has changed me as a human being. Yeah.
And in what way?
I knew that was coming. It's like I said, it gave me a family. It gave me a family of readers, and it softened me, and it opened me. Yeah.
One of the things that this better be in the book, because
yeah.
I feel
can't
like
wait
it's in the
till
book.
yeah.
I know. I just love this line, this little paragraph that Opal says. I loved the preacher so much. I loved him because he was going to forgive Winn-Dixie for being afraid. But most of all, I loved him for putting his arms around Winn-Dixie like that, like he was already trying to keep him safe.
That is in the book.
That gets me every time,
Yeah.
Kate.
Yeah, that's, yeah, yeah.
It's so... It's complicated.
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah, yeah. What a smart kid she is. Yeah. I mean, again, smarter than I am.
But there's something believably childlike about that, and yet there's something so wise and adult about that too.
Yeah. I'm really glad that the passage that you read from the book is in the book, and
Me
that
too.
and that I remember it.
I was like, I wrote this down. I thought, I remember this, right? I didn't dream that India
It
said
makes
that.
me think of the kid that wrote me a letter that said, my favorite part in the book was when Winn-Dixie had puppies. and it's like...
That's cute. One of the things that Kate and I were talking about downstairs is being read aloud to. And we both named the books that we remember teachers. And we have an audience full of teachers. A little bit of applause for the teachers.
I wish I could see all y'all, but you know that I'm thanking you. And we spent so much time talking about read aloud down there because I was asking as the diva of deflection, I was asking, and because I was genuinely interested about if you'd gotten Charlotte's Web, and Charlotte's Web was the book that, like, you suddenly understood what a book could do.
What we were saying downstairs was, what's the book where a teacher read the book aloud, and you were so enveloped by the experience of listening to the words that you realized this is what it really means to fall into a book.
Yeah.
Charlotte's Web and Caddie Woodlawn for me.
Yeah.
And without the that I can remember what she looks like. And for you?
You know, probably Ribsy, which Beverly Cleary's Ribsy.
Oh.
My mother had read to me, and my brother, and then I think it was my third grade teacher read that out loud. And when my mother read it to my brother and me, it was the first time I'd seen an adult laugh so hard that they cried. So it was just absolutely like, and that's the thing that I love about reading aloud is it gives. And I get up on my soapbox about this, but all you teachers out there, we said this down in the green room, but we both grew up in households where we were read to. Our parents purchased books for us, and we were taken to the library, and we are waxing about what happened to us in the classroom with a read aloud, and for kids who aren't getting it anyplace else, I said to Carrie, like, it sounds hyperbolic. I know it can save somebody's life. And so thank you for what you do. And also, back to that power of reading aloud, that moment when I saw my mother laugh so hard that she cried, it was like I saw her as a human being, kind of, you know, and that's what reading aloud lets you do. It's like you're in the story together, but it lets you see each other in a way that you know, everybody lets their guard down, kind of. So
I feel like I should ask you.
I don't know if you can see the calculating look on her face from out there, but I can see it, yes.
I feel like I should ask you, when you say, you know, reading aloud, a child being read aloud to, not at home and in a classroom can save a life. What are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of that experience that you had with Charlotte's Web, where you suddenly understood, oh, this is what it means to be in a story, and so and that there were other books that could maybe make you feel that way. So if you don't know that, if you're not getting it anyplace else, or if you're getting a book read aloud to you and you suddenly see yourself in a book,
right.
Or you understand somebody else's sorrow. I remember there was a book, and it's not in print anymore. It was called Somebody Else's Shoes, and it was about a girl whose father was a cobbler, and she could put on the shoes that came in for repair and go into her classmates' lives, and then she could see what it was like to
what
be
a
inside.
cool idea for a
it was
book.
great, and
wow.
and it was like it like made you think, what would it be like if I went into this person who's sitting next to me in class who I don't really, you make all these judgments about. But that's what a book does every time. You get to see into somebody else's life. And there's the empathy that you learn from that. So, yeah. Okay, you're looking pleased with me now, so that's good. Okay. Okay.
None of this is happening. None of this is happening.
A lot of this is happening, yeah.
Kate, have you read the Elena Ferrante novels? Okay.
Yeah.
So I went back, my summer project, one of them was just, for my own fun of reading, was to go back and read them again. Because I think I missed, what was your experience of reading those novels?
I found them to be incredibly immersive and slightly terrifying.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But there's a wonderful thread of examining forgiveness, I think, that travels through those books.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was thinking about how you incorporated that into Winn-Dixie. And it's been on my mind because I was reading those novels again, and I want to know what you think about that.
What do I think about forgiveness?
Well, about working it into that book.
Well, you know me, I work it in unwittingly, and I mean, surely in your exhaustive research into me, you've heard me tell this story, but I'm happy to tell it again.
Please do.
Yeah. Which is that the very first, Winn-Dixie was published, and then school said, "Hey, do you want to come and talk to us about this book?" Have you heard me tell this story?
I'll let you know.
Okay. And it was super exciting because they were going to pay me to go into the classroom and talk about the book that I wrote. And it was like they were going to pay me what I made in a week at the bookstore. It was thrilling. I was so excited. So I go trotting in, and I'm standing up in front of, I think they were fifth graders. And I'm standing up in front of the fifth grade class, and the teacher said, "Okay, here's the person who's written this book. And now we're going to talk about the themes in the book." And I can just see that money just slipping right out of my hands. It's like the themes. It's like I really felt like I was going to pass out. And these kids and this teacher put the themes, they happily talked among themselves and put the themes up on the board. And the first one that came up was forgiveness.
Love it. No, I've not heard this story
And then
before.
after that was family. And then after that was friendship. And when I got out to my car and wrung my shirt out from the whole experience, I wrote down what I had learned in there.
Really?
Yes,
Oh
truly.
my gosh.
And then I went and did the next school visit a couple weeks later, and I said, "Okay, let's talk about the themes in this book." But it's true. I mean, to sit there and think I'm going to put forgiveness in here, I would have messed it up. I didn't know. And those themes that those kids put up 25 years ago, 24 years ago, they're the same things that I keep on turning over and over and over. They are the preoccupations of my heart. Unwittingly, they show up again and again and again.
But now that you know, how do you?
How do I know? I try not to think about it. It's funny because in preparation for this evening, I did a couple things. One of them was not read any news, so that I could be upbeat when I came in here. and then the other thing was I thought, man, I should look at this book again to make sure that she doesn't trip me up with a question, right? So I didn't, and I've never read a book that I've, a novel once it's out. It's like, that's it, I'm not gonna read it again. But I went through to reacquaint myself. And it was so interesting because I thought, well, good grief, here I am doing the same thing again and again and again.
Really?
I could see it, yeah. But I don't let myself see it as I'm writing, because then I would mess it up,
But what does that say to you about what you're working out?
let's repeat that question. But what does that say to me?
About what you're
I'm
working
working
out
out.
on the page.
I don't know. I guess I'm writing as that 8-year-old kid who has those preoccupations, and the stories that I am writing are from that 8-year-old child and also to that 8-year-old child to comfort her, and hopefully they'll comfort somebody else. How was that?
That was beautiful.
I kind of like
It was like perfect.
I took a couple of sharp right-hand turns, and then
and brought it all
yeah,
home.
Right, yeah.
Your friend Ann Patchett
Yeah.
has, I think, some words of wisdom about forgiveness in writing. She says, forgiveness, the ability to forgive oneself. Stop here for a few breaths and think about this, because it's the key to making art, and very possibly the key to finding any semblance of happiness in life.
Wow, what was that? Was that?
Does that make you cry?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and
I
boy, you
know.
can sure hear Anne's voice
I
in
know.
it, can't you? Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. What was it from?
I don't know. I made it up. Just made it up. No. Oh, probably an interview that that I researched before she was here last time. But
Yeah.
what I love about that is it's not just, she's focused not just on how you're sharing and dispersing forgiveness, but she's also, as she is so wise about turning it back on yourself to say, now how do I live with this and how do I take this into my art?
And you're never ever going to be able to write a novel unless you forgive yourself.
Why?
Because it's just, and this is something that that Anne wrote a long time ago, that I, before I ever knew her, I carried those words around about like how the minute that this beautiful thing that's in your head, the minute you commit the first sentence of it or the first few words of it to paper, you've already, the beautiful thing is already compromised. And so you're never, ever going to be able to achieve that thing that's in your head. You have to forgive yourself. You have to write the book that you can write, and you have to know that it's going to be imperfect. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to put it out in the world. And that's, you do have to be able to forgive yourself.
What was the experience like of going back to read the book? Was it today you did this before?
Of reading...
Of Winn-Dixie,
No,
yeah.
oh, no, I didn't do Winn-Dixie. Hotel Balzaar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I thought you would have some hard-hitting questions
Oh,
about
I
that.
do.
But it's like...
That's all coming.
Yeah, right. What was it, like just to sit with those words
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and I read, when Winn-Dixie Anne had done an intro for the 20th anniversary of Winn-Dixie, and I reread it then, and that was the first time I'd read it since it had been out in the world. I read the first chapter out loud a lot, but
What was it like?
I was moved by it. I was moved by Opal, and I laughed at the dog, and I thought, when I was a kid, I was always hoping I would get locked in the Winn-Dixie overnight so that I could eat all of the Cheetos that I wanted, because my mother would never buy them for me. But I thought how wonderful it would be to walk into a grocery store and find a dog,
I know.
It's just like, yeah.
It's a dream.
Yeah,
It's
it
every
is.
kid's
Yeah,
dream,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But so when you go back to read work that has been finished that long, is it also an experience of, I know who I was, that, how much of it is into all the emotional weight of who you were 25 years ago and what your dreams were and what you thought this would mean to your life and how, the world kind of upended those expectations?
Yeah, none of that was there when I read. I fell into the story.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, the person who got up and wrote that book early in the morning before going to the Bookman every day, that person would have never, ever, ever dreamed that this would happen, ever. You know, it's just like this is it's unbelievable.
Tell me why.
Why? Why is it unbelievable? Because to get to make my living writing that's unbelievable, but more that emotional connection, or like we were talking about this in the green room, that the most remarkable thing that happens to me now is that teachers will come through a signing line and say to me, my teacher read this book to me in third grade, and I decided that I wanted to be a teacher then. And it's just like, who could imagine that? And sometimes the teachers will apologize because they think that makes me feel old. I am old, I know it. But more, what I am is I'm undone by the beauty of that a kid can sit in a classroom, a teacher reads aloud to them, and the kid thinks, I want to be the teacher that reads aloud, and then the book that they heard, they go and read to their class. Is that not the most beautiful thing in the world? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that I get to be a part of that, yeah. Now I'm getting a calculating look, so, yeah.
Constant narration of what's happening. You're wearing your mother's pearls.
I'm wearing
right?
my mother's pearls. I wore the pearls for Carrie because, you know,
they're beautiful.
You can see, like, her shoes, my shoes. Yeah. I thought, I'll dress it up. Yeah.
I was thinking as you were describing that, what if you, and maybe you did, you know, when your parents ask you when you're 7 or 8 years old what you want to be, could you have imagined, was this in the realm of your imagination? What would your mother have said?
What would my mother have said? Well, we'll save that one for a minute,
Okay.
Because she always had something to say. I say this to kids all the time. It's part of the reason that I feel it's so valuable to go out and talk to kids, is so that they can see me and see that I'm nobody special and that I get to do this magical job. And I didn't think human beings wrote books, you know. I have, and when I talk to kids, I have a PowerPoint, and it's a picture of me in my second grade classroom in my brownie uniform, which never ever fit me right. It was always like I looked like I'd escaped from a gulag, and I mean, it was terrible, and I looked like
wait, how could that? What?
It was a smock they didn't make them my size, and Betty, my mother, was like, oh, it's fine, and I just always looked ridiculous in it.
God.
Anyway, I show the kids that picture of me, and I say, that kid, I always think of that picture when somebody says, did you want to be a writer when you were a kid? And I say, I had no idea that this was something that you could do. So I want you to know that it is something that if you want to do it, you can do it. But I didn't. I just thought that books were, I don't know. I didn't think that human beings had anything to do with it. And if I had said to my mother, she would have said, that's great. You know, just, you know, she was not one for dreaming big. She was more one for doing the work. Shut up and do the work kind of thing. So, yeah.
Wait a minute. When you say she wasn't one for dreaming big, I mean, telling an 8-year-old to do the work seems a little, what?
Well, I mean, she wasn't like, oh, good job, honey.
Really?
Yeah, no. She was wonderful. And also just, you know, didn't she was just go do that. I remember saying to her once, Tina gets $5 for every A she makes. And she's like, so what? I don't care if you get A's or not. It's
what?
Like, yeah,
really?
She didn't. But I cared,
right.
And that's what she knew. I cared. She's like, why would I pay you to get A's? You want to get A's. It's just like, that's,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like my mother.
That's who she was.
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
Right. What do you think comes from, that does sound somewhat like my mother.
You want to talk about our mothers?
Let's talk about our mothers. And we didn't get to this in the green room. No, my mother's also very matter of fact and not conventional in the way she thought you parented. Consequently,
here we are.
I know.
Here we are.
Two kind of straight, plain speaking. So what do you think came from the way your mother handled that?
I think she gave me so many fantastic, great gifts. Yeah, and not the least of which is, and I've talked about this before, but I don't think you and I have talked about it, that the fact that I struggled to read. I didn't, because it was phonics, and phonics did not make any sense to me. And I remember coming home just hysterical, and my mother saying, for the love of Pete, calm down. And it's just like, I wanted it so badly, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. And she said, you're smart. We'll figure a way around it. And she made me flashcards, and that's how I learned to read. I just memorized the words.
Her confidence inspired your confidence that you would figure it out.
Yeah, and her seeing that there was a way around, and and her matter of factness in the face of my hysteria, because I wanted it so desperately.
Where'd she wear those pearls?
Where did she wear those pearls? That is a really good question, because she was not a big pearl. And the thing is, when I was putting these on, I felt guilty, because she always said the thing you need to do with pearls that makes them happy is to wear them. They need the oil from your skin, and I haven't worn them for a long time, but I did it because they're
very lustrous. They're beautiful and lustrous. All right, so I asked you to choose a favorite passage from Winn-Dixie to read.
Yeah.
But
we're not going to do that.
Well, but you're going to read the first chapter.
I'm going to read the first chapter,
okay,
because I went through, I flipped through, and it sums it up better.
Okay.
All
right, good.
Am I going to do that right now?
Let's do that.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Chapter 1. My name is India Opal Baloney, and last summer my daddy, the preacher, sent me to the store for a box of macaroni and cheese, some white rice, and 2 tomatoes, and I came back with a dog. This is what happened. I walked into the produce section of the Winn-Dixie grocery store to pick out my 2 tomatoes, and I almost bumped right into the store manager. He was standing there all red-faced, screaming and waving his arms around. "Who let a dog in here?" he kept on shouting. "Who let a dirty dog in here?" At first, I didn't see a dog. There were just a lot of vegetables rolling around on the floor, tomatoes and onions and green peppers, and there was what seemed like a whole army of Winn-Dixie employees running around waving their arms just the same way the store manager was waving his. And then the dog came running around the corner. He was a big dog and ugly, and he looked like he was having a real good time. His tongue was hanging out, and he was wagging his tail. He skidded to a stop and smiled right at me. I had never before in my life seen a dog smile, but that is what he did. He pulled back his lips and showed me all his teeth. Then he wagged his tail so hard that he knocked some oranges off a display, and they went rolling everywhere, mixing in with the tomatoes and onions and green peppers. The manager screamed, "Somebody grab that dog!" The dog went running over to the manager, wagging his tail and smiling. He stood up on his hind legs. You could tell that all he wanted to do was get face to face with the manager and thank him for the good time he was having in the produce department. But somehow he ended up knocking the manager over. And the manager must have been having a bad day because lying there on the floor right in front of everybody, he started to cry. The dog leaned over him, real concerned, and licked his face. "Please," said the manager, "somebody call the pound." "Wait a minute," I hollered. That's my dog. Don't call the pound." All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me, and I knew I had done something big and maybe stupid too, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't let that dog go to the pound. "Here, boy," I said. The dog stopped licking the manager's face and put his ears up in the air and looked at me like he was trying to remember where he knew me from. "Here, boy," I said again. And then I figured that the dog was probably just like everybody else in the world, that he would want to get called by a name, only I didn't know what his name was. So I just said the first thing that came into my head. I said, "Here, Winn-Dixie." And that dog came trotting over to me just like he'd been doing it his whole life. The manager sat up and gave me a hard stare like maybe I was making fun of him. "It's his name," I said, honest. The manager said, "Don't you know not to bring a dog into a grocery store?" "Yes, sir," I told him. "He got in by mistake. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "Come on, Winn-Dixie," I said to the dog. I started walking, and he followed along behind me as I went out of the produce department and down the cereal aisle and past all the cashiers and out the door. Once we were safe outside, I checked him over real careful, and he didn't look that good. He was big but skinny. You could see his ribs, and there were bald patches all over him, places where he didn't have any fur at all. Mostly, he looked like a big piece of old brown carpet that had been left out in the rain. "You're a mess," I told him. "I bet you don't belong to anybody." He smiled at me. He did that thing again where he pulled back his lips and showed me his teeth. He smiled so big that it made him sneeze. It was like he was saying, "I know I'm a mess. Isn't it funny?" It's hard not to immediately fall in love with a dog who has a good sense of humor. "Come on," I told him. "Let's see what the preacher has to say about you." And the two of us, me and Winn-Dixie, started walking home.
All right.
Bobby was asking after my worn jacket and my long hair. The memories far gone, crying out now about the North Country Fair. How could I forget it when I'm still living there? Some leave when the rivers freeze. Some go when the summer ends. Sometimes they don't come back again. But some of us prefer that fair northern wind. He remembers the ice and the snow, sings of me now that we've grown old. I care not that he left for warmer suns, could not tempt me from the land where water runs. Some leave when the rivers freeze. Some go when the summer ends. columbine blooms again, and in the darkness of my days, the night is bright and clear, it takes your breath away. Some leave, some leave when the rivers freeze. Some go, some go when the summer ends. Sometimes they don't come back again. Some of us prefer that fair northern wind.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh no, don't escape me yet, Siri. Tell us a little bit about the song and how you chose it.
That song is called North Country Girl, and it's actually a response song to one of my favorite stories, which is Bob Dylan's Girl from the North Country. And I grew up reading Kate's books, and I loved all the stories in it. So when I was brainstorming, I was like, okay, what's some story songs that I like to play? So.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is just
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
That was incredible.
You're listening to Talking Volumes at the Fitzgerald Theater with writer Kate DiCamillo. She has 3 new books out this year: The Hotel Balzaar, Oris and Timble, The Beginning, and Ferris. Did I miss any?
Yeah, no.
What?
That's,
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And next year
Yes.
is the 25th anniversary of Because of Winn-Dixie. Wow. My
Yeah.
gosh. You know what I'm curious about is whether this stuff comes easier to you.
Sitting here and talking to you.
Well, doing the kind of stuff that authors are, I don't know, asked, required to do. Has it gotten easier?
I am, as we were saying backstage, I'm an introvert. So and anytime I'm backstage waiting to go on, I always quote Bartleby, the Scrivener. I'd prefer not to, and I'm always like looking for the exits, and I'm fine once I'm out here, but I am an introvert, and I'm an introvert who has learned how to pretend to be an extrovert, and Walt Disney World is where I learned that.
And do tell.
Yeah, so I in my youth worked at Walt Disney World and Epcot Center at Spaceship Earth. I was, you will love this outfit. It was a blue polyester spacesuit that I wore, and I looked great in it, and it gave me a lot of confidence. So Disney had there was just a lot of. You had to move people around, crowd control, and you had to tell them where to go, and you had to make spiels, and I just learned it taught me how to seem like an extrovert. And I've gotten into some knockdown, drag-out fights with people about whether or not I'm an introvert. They're like, no, you're not. It's like, yeah, I am.
What, really?
Yeah.
People who doubt this?
Yeah, right, yeah.
No, I think I sense a fluttery heart in there and a...
Right now? Right now?
No,
does it seem
when
fluttery right now?
you're preparing for something like this.
Yes. Well, it's like a lot of times I had my head between my knees. Does that count as a fluttery heart?
I didn't mean that literally. I meant there's a kind of a fluttery. Like, I wish I didn't have to do that.
Does it get any easier?
Yeah.
No, but what has changed for me is that I am able to let more of it in.
You're able to let more of it in?
Yeah, that interaction with people. That's, when we're talking about Winn-Dixie and how it changed me to write it, and then how the reception out in the world. And so a lot of light comes my way because of those books, and I have learned to let that light in. I've let my guard down, and that has changed. So I feel it all more,
What were you like with your guard up?
Kind of like this, like I am with you.
No, I don't believe that.
I think I've softened. And that has been a great gift of doing this.
So with your guard up, you were someone who kind of moved through the world looking for, with kind of a chip on your shoulder, or looking for...
I don't think I ever had a chip on my shoulder, but like if I would push the compliments away, which are not really compliments, they're rather stories of connection.
Right.
Now I let those in. Do you know, does that make sense?
Yes. And so initially...
I was disbelieving and holding myself back, yeah. And now I've been after you've been after me with your meat tenderizer. I'm.
What? Can I ask you when the moment?
It's very gratifying to make you laugh.
You make me laugh all the time. What was the period of kind of realization, would you say? Because that's a pretty big transformation.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a singular moment. My best friend that I grew up with I can't remember what I was on stage for, but she happened to be here and said, "I've never seen you be so open. You're open in a different way." Wow. And that's when I started to process the fact that I had been changed by all of this.
And that there wasn't as much risk in being open as you thought there was? Or
just that I was willing to receive that love. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does being open still feel risky sometimes?
Again, we have to stop and wonder what we're doing here.
Getting to know you in all your dimensions.
Of course, but it's like there's, of course, it's always risky, but, it has given me so many gifts. So, yeah. Yeah.
She's like, can we please talk about the parrot in the new book?
Yeah, you want to talk about the parrot in the book? Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Tell me about the parrot in the new book. Somebody actually out there, when I was saying hello to everybody, said, "What's with the parrot?
What is with the parrot?" The whole book is like, when I went, skim through it today, it is very much a book that is a product of the pandemic, and I can see that so clearly. And going back, and that you're being held in time, and it's literally there with because the story is about a girl that lives in a hotel with her mother who works there as a maid, and they've waiting for her father who is at war, and Marta goes down to the lobby of the hotel and has been told by her mother, it's like, don't touch anything, you have to pretend like you don't exist. And she stands in front of this clock and watches the cat chase the mouse. And it was just like, it was so much that feeling,
right,
that we all had of just like being suspended in time. And this book is very much a product of that time. Okay.
Complete containment. I mean, you really captured that sense of the world has stopped outside these walls, and these walls are all that I'm going to be able to live in, and that's going to feel.
But yet, hope is still there.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Marta, the girl, encounters this countess who is going to tell her stories, which I love because it takes her, of course, outside of her experience in this hotel. And she's in the midst of telling Marta 7 stories, and Marta gets impatient. And she says, what difference does it make how many stories there are and in what order they're told? They're pointless, your stories. They don't mean anything. And I thought, young Marta is questioning the very thing that makes Kate DiCamillo who and what she is. It's a deep moment in the book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because as I was skimming through, preparing for the very questions,
interrogation, yes.
that you're asking me, I saw that line, and
you did?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I would think that what was going on for me subconsciously is, what's the point of telling stories now? I mean, it's like, this is what you're going to do, but that's what saved me to be able to tell that story. And then again, it's that thing that then it goes out there and maybe it gives hope to somebody else, but I'm sure that's what was going on subconsciously for me, is just like, this is pointless. And the other thing is, these stories, there are stories within stories, and they're all kind of linked in a way, and I don't outline. I don't know what's going to happen, and so it's like it's a high wire act, right, to see how those are all going to come together. And even flipping through it today, I thought, I wonder where I got the nerve to do that, not knowing right, how it was all going to come together.
Okay, that's something I wondered about. As you point out, the stories that the Countess is telling all have a...
They're not pointless at all.
No.
Yeah.
And they're elegant in their connection. And you're telling me that all just... That's kind of magic. It all just happens somewhat accidentally. There was no plan for the way those stories would...
Yeah, I'm
connect.
taking. Yeah, no, I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah, which is terrifying and wonderful. It's just me coming downstairs early in the morning when it's still dark and thinking, "Gosh, I hope this all works out."
And you have confidence now that it does.
No, I don't. I do have. What I have is confidence in showing up every day. And I have confidence in, if I can get out of my own way and let the story, which is smarter than I am and knows more than I know, if I can get out of my own way. And I know that you don't like that. I listen to the radio. I know this person. I know that you don't believe that's, but it is very...
I do believe that.
Okay.
But I was going to ask you to explain that a little.
I can't explain it except to say that I do multiple drafts, and that first draft is it looks like Jack Nicholson in The Shining has written it, right? It's just like but it is a rough enough map that when I go back to do the second draft, then I can find my way through the story, and then I do a third draft, and I find, so
okay,
it's like I'm not outlining, but I'm finding
right,
how the pieces fit together with each time I do a draft. And because the way I do it is I print up the previous draft, and I retype, and I have... I'm looking over here at the old draft. There it is. It exists. No need to panic. And I'm typing the new one. And I have found that the physical act of typing, it's kind of like, if you play the piano, how your brain can disconnect,
yeah,
and your fingers can go ahead and do the work for you. It's just like my mind will make connections just through the physical act of typing that I wouldn't, I'm doing a big rewrite right now, and any normal person would go in there, this is for my editor's notes, and there's the manuscript, just go ahead and put these changes in. But I have found if I go back and retype the whole thing, the connections subconsciously, they pull up. I don't, does that make sense?
Yeah. Is there a moment in every book where you have to kind of assure yourself that you will find your way through. You do have your, your kind of discipline for this. I guess I'm curious about whether you have done this long enough, 25 years later, that you don't kind of experience that. Now, where is this going? Because you said, no need to panic. I've got that first draft there.
Yeah.
Are you past that?
No,
now?
I'm never past panic, never. But and it used to be, and you can go to the Curlin, at the University of Minnesota, the Curlin collection, and you can see my rough drafts. And I would talk to myself in the rough drafts and say, don't panic, don't,
Really?
Yeah, and I've stopped with some of that, just because, I've been in a room full of freshman English majors who, look at the first draft of the first page of Winn-Dixie and laugh. But it's just, it also in the notebooks, I have notebooks that I use, in the afternoon, and sometimes some insight about what I've done in the morning, that will end up in the notebook. But I have learned that if I am patient and if I show up, that the story knows what to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We were talking about teachers earlier, and I went back to read your Newbery Award speech from 2004 in Orlando, Florida, which must have been so wonderful.
You know what was great about that? Because I grew up in Claremont, and Orlando is about 30 miles away. But the best thing about it being in Orlando that year was the Newbery. It was 1,000 librarians come to this banquet, and Tale of Despera, which was the book that won that year, I had written. I had written. One of my best friend's son was 8 years old, and he asked me for the story of an unlikely hero with exceptionally large ears. That's where that was, and I'm like, what happens to the hero? And he said, I don't know. That's why I want you to write the book. So his name is Luke, and he was 8 years old when he said that. And by the time we got the Newbery, he was almost 14.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
That's how long it takes to write a book.
Oh, my gosh.
And I made him come to that banquet because it was, and it was great.
That's great.
And I'm like, and everybody's like, oh, he must have been so thrilled. No.
He was bored.
I made him stand up in front of everybody, and
Right.
yeah. So that was the best thing about being there. Okay, yes, go ahead.
You said, you told this wonderful story of Miss Alice, the librarian, announcing that you were a true reader.
Yeah.
And that you could check out as many books as you liked. And oh my gosh, I loved what you said in the speech. Miss Alice's hand trembled on my shoulder as she said these words. Or perhaps my shoulder trembled beneath her hand, I cannot say. All I know for certain is that her words, spoken so passionately, so fiercely, shaped me and helped me define who I was. Who was I?
I was a true reader.
Right.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah.
Isn't that a fan? Oh
And
my gosh.
you know that thing about like to have an adult outside of your household recognize, to see you, and my mother did a very good job of seeing me, but that moment was pivotal for it just, I knew who I was.
Right.
And it's still who I am. It's like, if you ask me who I am, the first word out of my mouth is I'm a reader, not a writer, but a reader. And I have the flashbulb memory of being in of Cooper Memorial Public Library, with Miss Alice.
Alice Hoffman was here a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about that experience of knowing when you're the real thing as a reader. She can remember the moment vividly when she realized, I think it was in a bookshop, and that she was allowed to, and libraries, and that she was allowed to pick anything she wanted, and that this filled something in her, that this was really meaningful to her.
Right. And it's the same as me struggling to learn how to read. I knew that it was what I needed.
That makes it all the more remarkable, though.
Yeah, but it was just that was everything. And the other flashbulb memory I have, because like we would go. Betty, my mother, would load everybody up in the 1969 Ford station wagon, everybody in the neighborhood, and take us to the library. And we go in there in our bare feet. And I have a flashbulb memory of my bare feet on the wooden floor in front of the spin rack, where all the that's what I see every time somebody says the word Newberry to me, is me standing in front of that spin rack of all the Dell Yearling Newberries. Remember those?
Yes.
Yeah. And I just like I think about that, and I think, not that we're talking about this, but it's like to think that would be on something that I wrote. It's like that 8-year-old me standing there in my bare feet, spinning past Charlotte's Web, because it's like, oh no, something terrible is going to happen to the pig. Don't get that one. I didn't read it, but yeah. Okay. That was,
I love that.
Yeah. It's like, he looked so worried on the cover. He does. It's just,
we all know what happens.
Yeah.
It was funny because Alice and I talked about, what do people who don't read do with their brains? I'm genuinely curious about this.
And you're asking me?
Yes. You're the woman of many answers. What do you think?
I don't know. It's funny because, I'm mostly a fiction reader, but every once in a while I'm in nonfiction, and I'm going to answer your question in a roundabout way. I've got a book that a friend gave to me called A Notebook, a History. It's a history of the Notebook.
Oh.
I recommend it to you wholeheartedly.
Really?
Yeah. And I recommended it to you as well wholeheartedly. And I don't know, I'm maybe a quarter of the way through it, but it's so interesting it is this vast, wide-ranging history of notebooks. And it touches on everything. It touches on art, and it touches on writing, and it's fascinating. And as far as what can your brain do without books, I don't know, because as I'm reading, I can feel my brain making connections that it wouldn't normally make.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like I can feel the gears in my brain moving as I'm reading and I can see all the stories that are hidden inside these nonfiction accounts. It's like, ooh, that gives me an idea. So yeah, I don't know what everybody else is doing, but that's what's going on in my brain. Yeah. So yeah.
When you're reading, so you're primarily reading fiction these days.
Yeah.
What are you looking for when you're reading fiction, and is it different than it might have been, I don't know, at the beginning of your writing career?
I'm looking for something that tells me the truth and also comforts me at the same time. Yeah. What are you looking for in a fiction book?
We're not. No.
It was a genuine question.
Try.
Yeah.
Nice try. Okay, tells you the truth.
Yeah.
But comforts you.
But also comforts
Why?
me too. Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm in need of comfort. I mean, raise your hand if you're in need of comfort. I mean.
Right.
I just finished Zadie Smith's The Fraud, which I really loved. Yeah, and it made me laugh out loud, and it provided the comfort by showing me how these things that have happened again and again and again and again, and that was the comfort for me, and also the comfort in being told a complicated story, and the immersiveness of being subsumed by a world. That's comforting too.
So the idea of continuity, again, things have happened again and again, is comforting, and why?
Why? Well, I do more rereading now that I'm older, and that kind of started in the pandemic. And Hilary Mantel's The Light in the Mirror had come out, during the pandemic.
Such a great book.
It is so good, and I've gone back and reread all of those
trilogy?
again.
Yeah.
And why is it comforting? Because I like to think, what if Cromwell was tweeting from Henry VIII's castle? I mean,
God.
How wound up would we be, And so it's pretty wound up,
Wow, that wasn't my thought when I was reading those, and those are among my all-time favorite novels.
And I never, as I finished rereading all three again, and this year I thought, this isn't the last time. I will go back again. Yeah. Why?
Do you find yourself? And maybe your investigation of this as a writer is different than mine, but I find myself going, how does she do it? How does she do it, Hilary Mantel?
Yeah, I know that you're looking at me like I'm lost in the conversation. I'm not. I'm just, I would never, I don't think, how does she do it?
You don't?
No, I give myself over to the genius of that. Talk about just like, I would never, how could you do that?
Because I marvel, I kind of pull back every now and then and marvel at just how seamless and sophisticated and yet so thrilling the stories are.
Yeah, right. And it is so much a character study of Cromwell.
Right.
Yeah. And you love him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You do.
you do.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah. So that's, I guess when you were brushing your teeth and getting ready to come today, you didn't think, wow, we're going to talk about how much we love Cromwell.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's like.
But I love that.
Yeah.
You know what I take away from those novels, just because I can't let this go? That somebody, I love the secret knowledge that we have of somebody who might look villainous or cold. And it's not, it's shown and not told, I guess.
Well, and it goes to that very thing of like, when I'm saying the person who's sitting next to you in second grade who you've been terrified of.
Right.
And then you think, wait a minute. And you get to wear somebody else's shoes.
My gosh, exactly right.
Yeah.
Boy, you are a genius at bringing it back around. Wow.
You heard it here
See
first.
how that was done? Oh my God. That was great. Okay. So I love these things that the New York Times does about the dinner party, where did you get the request from them and you were like, oh my, why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, no.
But you had a good answer.
I didn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not going to have a dinner party, and I said it. Yeah.
Because your house would be too small to host a dinner party, wouldn't it?
I don't cook and I don't host. I'm great at somebody else's dinner party, but I'm like, you don't want to be at a dinner party at my house.
I thought when Ann Patchett was here, your house is so small you couldn't host Ann.
No, I put Ann across the street at my friend Jenny Buck's house.
Right.
Yeah, it was great over there. She was very comfortable.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
There's one bathroom.
At your house.
Yeah.
But you could still host a dinner party.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna. Yeah.
And you would have, do you remember who you suggested?
Sure.
What a trio.
I know. Wouldn't you love? And I said I would not. I would like to just be a fly in the wall for the conversation between Isaac Dennison and Marilyn Robinson and Margaret Atwood. Right? I mean,
why Dennison?
I love Dennison.
I do too.
Yeah, I go back to those stories all the time, and I just watch. Do you know Babette's Feast? The movie. It's so wonderful. She's just the consummate storyteller, and she She's very much related to the Countess in this book.
Wow.
Yeah, she was very much in my mind as I wrote that. Just as she was very much on my mind in Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane with the grandmother, Pellegrina. Yeah, that's also a Denison. Yeah.
What about Marilyn Robinson? Why her?
Gilead is one of my favorite books that I reread again and again and again, and I've underlined and dog-eared, and it is a miracle to me, that book.
Have you met her?
No.
And how about Margaret Atwood? Why Margaret Atwood?
Just the most penetrating intelligence, and boy, can she tell a story. And I think that the three of them, that would be, something else, that conversation. Like I said, I don't want to be there. I just want to listen to it. Yeah.
You don't want to participate?
Yeah. Right. No,
you just want to listen.
Yeah, I couldn't hold my own. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you could?
Yeah.
All right. How about our second excerpt?
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about.
So Marta lives at the hotel. She and her mother have a room in the attic, and her mother works, and Marta is allowed to go down to the lobby as long as she doesn't touch anything or do anything. So this is how she spends her days. Chapter 2, Marta spent her days descending and ascending and descending the back stairs, the Hotel Balzaar. She studied the angel wing. She studied the clock, the cat, and the mouse. She counted the steps of the back stairs, 38, 39, 78, 79, 127, 128. There was no end to the numbers, the counting of the stairs, the watching, the waiting. Her mother, meantime, cleaned rooms. At the noon hour, Marta was allowed to go to the hotel kitchen, and there she was presented with a hunk of bread, a wedge of cheese, and a cup of milky tea. Sometimes there was a thick smear of apricot preserves on the bread, sometimes not. Marta stood with her mother in the kitchen, and the two of them ate this meal quietly, gratefully, as the kitchen workers moved around them. "So," said her mother, "you are being good." "Yes," said Marta. "We will see if I can find something to share with you," said her mother. "Something, who knows what." Marta's mother often brought her things that people had left behind in their rooms. Once there was a pair of elegant embroidered slippers that were too big for Marta's feet. "Perhaps someday you will grow enormous feet," said her mother when she presented the slippers to Marta. She smiled sadly. "Who knows? It's possible. Your father has very large feet." "You remember?" "I remember," said Marta. "Thank you, Mama." She put the slippers beside the bed, and they sat there in all their embroidered glory, waiting either for Marta's feet to become enormous or for her father to return. Which was more likely? Another time, Marta's mother brought her an empty bottle of perfume. The bottle itself was unassuming, but the label pasted on it was beautiful and elaborate. It featured a smiling mermaid with a green tail and yellow hair. Words in another language twined around the mermaid above her glowing head and below her fish tail. The words promised something, Marta was sure, but she did not know what. She had pulled the stopper from the bottle only once, and a smell of flowers and grass and light had wafted up out of the glass like a memory, a dream. Marta put the perfume on top of the chest of drawers so that she could see the mermaid's face when she woke in the morning. Also on the dresser was her mother's brush, and beside that was an envelope that was stained and worn smooth from handling. Marta's mother's name was written on the envelope, Elena Buccelli, and below her name was Marta's name, Marta Buccelli. The exact words Marta's father had written on the envelope were, "And Marta Buccelli too, of course." How Marta loved those two words, of course, of course.
There's an old barn on a ghost farm, hollowed out and filled with stars. The sky fell through the busted roof, a hole so wide the moon came to. There's a strange glow in these kind of ruins, a broken dream we're clinging to. Cornfields, roadkill, bird song, hoping still. Thinking about that oak tree there on the edge of that property, on land stolen, bought and tilled 200 years, and that tree is still holding up the canopy of a forest cut for currency. Can't imagine, still I try. Intelligence outside my mind, patience, dignity, old growth, green leaves, deep roots, metal teeth cut through the ears of those tree rings. Tornado, siren, tumbleweed, Christmas lights on Main Street. Cornfields, roadkill, bird song, hoping still. Get there quick, outrunning the hurt you know will stick. Rich with excuses, but I'm not convinced. Just 'cause you're speeding ahead doesn't mean that it's fixed. Cornfields, roadkill, bird song, hoping still.
Thank you. You're listening to Talking Volumes at the Fitzgerald Theater with author Kate DiCamillo, and my gosh, she has 3 books out this year: Ferris, Oris and Timble, The Beginning, and Hotel Balzaar, and next year, the 25th anniversary of Because of Winn-Dixie. Let's raise the lights here and we can do some Q&A. Are you going to sign books afterwards?
I am going to sign books afterwards.
Okay, yay.
Yeah.
All right. So there's microphones up there and down here. Okay. Questions, everyone. If you'll just raise your hand, we'll bring a microphone over to you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Carol Hins. I adore your books. Holy Bagumba. I would love you to talk a little about how it is that your characters have these wonderful turns of phrase that only they say, and if that just sort of happens organically, or if you're sort of, because they come back and they repeat and they take on more meaning as the book goes on. And I'm curious if that happens through revision or if it's there all along.
Let's start with Holy Bagumba, which is from Flora and Ulysses, and that, you know, Lisa Beck, are you here? That's one of my best friends up there, and I'm like, I put your mother's phrase "Holy Bagumba" into this book, and she's like, my mother never said that. So I don't. I thought for sure that was something that your mom had said, so I don't know where they come from. But when I see them, it's kind of like a leitmotif, right? It's like then I will consciously work it, but I don't know where they come from, just the same way I don't know where characters' names come from. It's just that thing of like, they spontaneously appear, these strange things from my strange brain. Yeah, okay.
All right, a question right up there in the balcony.
So I would like to host a dinner party that you come to, or at least tea. But what I'm wondering is the two books this year, Ferris and Hotel Balzaar, both encompass light. And I'm wondering if the way in which Hotel Balzaar weaves stories together is similar to your vision of the Narendi tales and the way that those stories as a whole are going to weave together, or if that's something that's yet to unfold.
Oh, that's interesting. So the Narendi tales, the first one was The Puppets of Spellhorse, and the second one is the Hotel Balzaar, and then the third one will come out next year.
Wow.
And they are not actually woven together. They all take place in the same place in my mind. But when you said weaving them together, I looked around for my notebook to think, wow, I wonder if I could like do a fourth thing where I like bring all of those, but yeah, that never occurred to me. Does that answer your question?
What do you mean when you say bring all of them together into a fourth book?
Yeah, right. To take all of these elements, to take Marta and the Countess and the puppets from the Puppets of Spellhorse. I mean, that's fabulous. And then I can't say what the other one is about yet, but I know that character. And to put them all together, that would be spectacular. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, a question right over there on that side.
Hi, Kate.
Hi.
This is, I think, the second time we've spoken to each other in the last, I'd say, 23 years, maybe. The last time being at the Blue Earth County Library in Mankato, Minnesota.
Oh, I
when
remember
was
doing Blue Earth. So were you? Yeah, were you a child then?
I was a child then. Yeah,
Yes.
about 23 years ago, I would have been a little one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a very complicated question for you, but
That's great.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't have to deflect this one, but I'm dedicated to the holidays. We got Halloween coming up here, and I love to know what people are reading. I love to know what the people that I like to read are reading. So, do you have anything that you are reading in preparation of Halloween, of ghost story season?
I'm not reading anything to scare myself because I'm so scared all the time. So, but I will recommend, which has nothing to do with Halloween, I will recommend a book to you that it's a graphic novel, and it's about the friendship between C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. And it's called Myth Makers, and it is spectacular. And so it is not scaring me yet, although it's so interesting to see that they were both in the trenches of World War I and how that influenced what they wrote. It's really fantastic. Yeah. So there you go. The trenches of World War I. That's terrifying. So that brings us back to Halloween. So it's good to see you again. Yeah.
And wait a minute, what are you reading at the moment?
Yeah. That's.
I'm reading Weave World by Clive Barker right now. I'm just becoming a Clive Barker fan.
That is scary.
Yeah, that is scary. Yeah.
And I just finished The Stand, which is,
That's also very scary.
Just going over, the classics.
You're on quite a tear.
Very terrifying stuff.
You're kind of scary
Kate.
yourself now that I think about that. All right, a question right there.
I would love to hear more about the afternoon notebook.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. That is something that has developed over time, and that I have relied on more and more to have that. So the notebook is, I will reward myself at the end of the day by turning everything off and sitting down with a book and the notebook. And as I read, I will suddenly make connections in what I am working on, and then I can write about it in the notebook. So it's kind of like it's a way to feed my soul, but it also gives me insight into what I'm working on. And sometimes the most mundane things will go into that notebook too, but also just this thing that we talked about the, I'll go home and write that down in the notebook. I keep a running list at the back of the notebook of phrases or story ideas, and they're always there, and I transfer them from notebook to notebook, and a lot of times I will refer to that. So I have found it to be a very, very useful tool. And in the morning, I do morning pages. Julia Cameron's. That was a life changer for me. If that whole notion of you're not doing it for anybody, you're just writing it for yourself, and you can complain. And she's right that if you complain every day for a long time, you'll finally do something about it. You get sick of listening to yourself. So yeah.
All right. Question up there in the middle balcony.
Hi, Kate and Carrie. Thank you very much for this evening. I'm reading Richard Powers' Playground right now.
Way to go.
It is really good. I loved Understory, so when I heard this was coming out, I had to read it. What I'm wondering is, Richard Powers says he has a strong sense of moral obligation when he writes, that he feels he needs to relate a message to his readers, maybe a warning, you could even say, about the environment, about climate change, whatever the case may be. I wondered if you ever feel compelled to do something similar, or if your stories are completely organic and fun-loving and there's no hidden messages or warnings to your readers that you feel like you need to include in them.
If I were to put a message in a book, if I sat down and thought I need to put this in here, I know that I would mess it up. That's me. And so things end up in there that are smarter. As I said, the story is smarter than I am. And there are, things are learned, but I never set out to teach anything because I know that I could not write a story that way. I am aware, and I was aware from the first time that I started, because of Winn-Dixie, I'm aware of a moral obligation to end with hope and to offer hope, because I'm writing for kids. And no one ever told me that. I just feel that, that is part of what I need to do. But other than that, I just get out of the way and let the story tell me what it's about. Yeah.
Kate, have you had a chance to read Playground yet?
I have not.
Richard Powers?
Yeah, no.
It's wonderful.
Okay.
Question right down there.
Who is your favorite person that you've written about?
My favorite character?
Yeah.
That is so hard to answer, because then I feel bad for all the other characters, I'll go at it sideways, if that's okay with you. I'll do it this way. The character that I am most like is Raimi from Raimi Nightingale. That's the kid that I was, and that's the most of me that I've, a character that's most like me. And then I have to go all the way back to India Opalyn because of Winn-Dixie, because I'm not going to say they're my favorites, but I wouldn't be sitting here getting to talk to you right now without that book. So those two. How's that? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah.
I like Edward Tulane.
You like Edward Tulane? Oh, that rabbit. Like I got a bunch of letters from some kids in Texas who said that they think that Edward thinks he's all that plus a bag of chips, which I thought was so funny. I mean, it's the saying, but I had never heard it before. Yeah, he's. All
right. Okay, question, right down there. Hi.
In your book, Hotel Balzaar, why did you choose the Countess to tell Martha the 7 stories?
Why did I choose the Countess? When I set out to write the story, all I knew was that I needed a fairy tale, something that would comfort me. And I saw this beautiful hotel in my head, and then there was Marta all of a sudden. But there's this moment when the Countess arrives in the hotel, and when I'm sitting there writing the story, I am as surprised as Marta is when the Countess walks in. So it's just like I did not anticipate this character showing up, and I recognized her because she reminded me so much of this writer that I like, Isaac Dennison. So Isaac Dennison has a book called 7 Gothic Tales, and I thought, here's this Countess who reminds me so much of Isaac Dennison. I bet you she's going to tell stories. So that's all I knew, and I'm discovering it along with Marta. Does that make sense? You did a good job listening to me, so yeah.
Question right up there.
You talked about how you like books that bring you comfort. And so I was wondering if you structure your reading so you read like books that are protein and books that are junk food. So during trying times, I tend to read a lot of beach reads, fantasy, romance, and then I try and read some books that have more meaning. I'm wondering if you have any of those lighter read authors that you enjoy.
Yeah, I never think of anything that I want to read as junk food. I think of it as what and I'll go to books for different things. Sometimes I go for language, and it's like when I go back to Gilead, I'm so much after that language, and it's the same thing I'm after with Hilary Mantel too.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right, Mantel?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you said it differently.
I said mantle. Yeah.
So, but you're the one that
what do
you're the
I
professional.
know? I know nothing.
But so I will. I guess it's not. I don't think of it as junk food, but I will go in search of those things that will have that density of language, and then also lightness of language. That's kind of, and then also. The comfort. I don't know if
that makes a lot of sense.
What made me think of it is when you were talking about when you read for comfort, and you had mentioned some reference to the pandemic. I read through Ellen Hildebrand's 28 books during the pandemic because every night it brought me back to Nantucket, so it brought me out of my current situation. And I was wondering if you had something equivalent to that.
Hilary Mantel. Yeah, because it would take me so out of,
deep history.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay, question right over here.
Not too long ago, I read one of your books, The Magician's Elephant, and I was wondering, how did you come up with that story?
How did I come up with The Magician's Elephant? Did you like the book? Yes. Okay, great. That's good. That was kind of foolish of me to ask you that on radio. So I was sitting in a hotel lobby in New York City, and I had my notebook with me, which was great because all of a sudden I had this just like a vision of this magician who was kind of like a little bit seedy looking, greasy haired, dirty fingernails, but I knew that this was a guy that wanted to like work real magic. I got out my notebook and I wrote down the description of this magician, and then I went to put my notebook back into my bag, and I saw a gift that I was going to give to a friend later on, and it had an elephant on the cover of it, and I suddenly knew what this magician was going to do. He was going to conjure a live elephant by mistake, and I was just like, I was so excited by this. I remember going to lunch with a friend afterwards, and she was talking to me, and I was just like, I was literally like buzzing with, oh, this is a story. So and then when I wrote it, if this is more than you asked for, I started with the elephant coming through the roof of the opera house, and it took me a while to figure out that I was going to have to start with Peter and go back, and that was like a lot of rewriting. Thank you for that question. You did, again, a beautiful job of paying attention to me as I talked on and on, yeah.
All right, another question right down here.
Hi. So what's your main source of inspiration?
Where are you?
She's right there in the second row.
My main source of inspiration? I'm a big fan of staring at people and eavesdropping. Do you know what I mean? I can see you nodding your head. People are fascinating. When I was growing up, one of my best friends was named Kathy Lord, and Kathy Lord sat at the back of the room, and then she liked to sharpen her pencil, which was up at the front of the room, and so that she could walk by and look at what everybody was doing, not for any nefarious reason, just because she was fascinated by what everybody was doing at their desk. And so for a long time, when I would sit down in the morning, I would think, be like Kathy Lord on the way to the pencil sharpener. Pay attention to everything, because I think that's your job when you write. So that's my inspiration, Kathy Lord, sharpening her pencil. Yeah.
All right. Question right over there.
You had mentioned that you would go to the schools and talk to the teachers would read your books to the students. And afterwards, would the students come up to you and say, I want to write books like you? What advice would you give to them?
Sure. I have the same advice that I give to young writers as I give to old writers, and it's pretty simple. You need to read as much as you can, and if you're not thrilled to get that assignment, you don't want to be a writer. And then you need to write, which seems like a no-brainer, but I tell you what, it took me a long time to figure this out. You know, you can't just dream about writing. You have to figure out a way to do it, and you have to commit to doing it. So you read, you write, and then guess what? You have to rewrite, because it's not going to come out right the first time. It will not come out right the first time. I don't care who you are. So a lot of times kids and adults will sit down thinking, man, I got a novel in me. And they sit there and it's like they can't believe how terrible what they write is, right? And it's like, okay, I guess I'm not talented, you know? And there's this great book called Art and Fear that talks about how there's one Mozart born every century, one genius who hears the music and puts it down on the page, and then they say, guess what? That's not you. So it's just like, if you want to make art, you're gonna have to be willing for it to be messy. So you read, you write, you rewrite, and you keep a notebook. I have found it to be invaluable. All that, you know, paying attention and staring that you do, everything that you overhear and see, everything goes into the notebook. And then the last thing I would say is, you know, if you're young and you're going to go to school, and don't let them talk you into being a lawyer, because if you have a verbal facility, a lot of times that's where, did somebody try to send you that way?
No.
Yeah, I see. You would have made a great lawyer.
I would have.
To see. Yeah.
I know. But this is a whole lot more fun, what I'm doing here. Do we have more kids who would like to ask questions? All right, right over there.
Hi, my name's Sarah, and I was wondering, how do you know when you're like ready to write a book?
Oh, good question.
Wow. You know what, Sarah? I've been doing this a long time, and nobody has ever asked that question. How do you know when you're ready? You know, it is it is an individual journey. I have to say that. And I'll just tell you about me and how long I thought that I wanted to write a book. You know, from the time I was 21 till I was almost 30, I thought, I want to write, and I didn't write. And then finally I saw that, you know, I could go the rest of my life saying that I wanted to write and not doing this thing that I said that I wanted to do. So that for me was the moment. And, you know, a lot of times when you sit down and you think you're ready, and then you do that thing where all of a sudden here are these words and they're not like the beautiful vision in your head, you might give up. And so I would just say, keep on testing the waters, going in there, writing a few pages, coming back, editing those pages and moving forward, and you'll know whether you're in or not. You know, a lot of writing advice, I always say there's no wrong way to do it, except if you feel like you're supposed to be doing it and you're not doing it. So,
okay, let's take this one right here.
In the book, The Puppets of Spellhorst, how did you think of that story idea?
How did I come up with the Puppets of Spellhorst? I've got a friend who had puppets from when she was a kid. One is a wolf, and one is an owl. And I said to her about 7 years ago, gosh, I love those puppets. Can I borrow them? And I came home and I put them in my office, and I thought, because I felt like there was a story in them, and they're still in my office, and there was a story in them.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to return them.
Gee, I love your treasured toys.
That's right.
You'll never see them again. All right, question. Oh, do you want to add anything else to that besides your thievery and your...
No,
okay.
I don't know if that's the way I would sum it up, thievery, but yeah, that was the inspiration. That was, yeah.
Question right down there in the middle.
How do you find and choose your illustrators?
Yeah, it's a great question because it doesn't, we are not, I'm not in charge of finding my illustrators or of choosing them. What happens is that my editor works with the design people at the publishing house, and they send me samples of illustrators that they're thinking about using, and then I will see the art as it comes in. But, for... say Edward Tulane. How many of y'all, when you're reading, I know this is radio, but whatever, see the book, see the movie in your head? Raise your hand. Yeah, and they say it's about 70% of us do. So it's just like as I'm writing, I see it in my head. And so when somebody else is drawing the pictures, they're going to see what they're seeing, So they come in and they are different than what I imagined. But I let somebody else's vision take over, and it becomes this deep process. But I do not meet those people until the book is done. We're not sitting side by side. We're not working together. I'm separated by, and I've always thought this is because they think that writers are really neurotic and artists are even more neurotic. So how would it benefit them to talk to each other? Best to and so I don't meet them until it's done.
Wow. Question right up there in that box, Kate, right up at the top.
I read my first book when I was in 3rd grade, and my 3rd grade teacher was reading it to me, and I was like, oh, I need to write one of those books. So I'm in the middle of writing my first book, and I was wondering, how many rejection letters did you get before you got to publish because of Winn-Dixie?
Right. Okay, so let's first of all say yay you for writing that book. And then the rejection letters, when I go and do that PowerPoint with kids and I say, okay, so I talk to them about reading, writing, rewriting, keeping a journal, asking what if, why not, can it be? I think those are beautiful questions that can lead to a story. And then I say, okay, so after a while you have a story, and then you send the story out. What do you get back? And the answer always from the kids is money. And I say, nope, it's not money. You get rejection letters, and then I ask them to guess how many rejection letters I got, and it's like they'll guess 50, 75, 100, and then I put the number up there, and it's 473, and the room goes wild. They think, what is wrong with this person, is what they clearly think, No. And so those 473 rejection letters were not for Winn-Dixie, but they were for me learning how to write a story. They were all going to literary journals. It was just like I was just relentless about putting them out there. And every time that number comes up, I say to the kids, I have literally stood underneath this number all over the world, and I think the same thing every time. What if I'd stopped at 472? I would not be standing here talking to you, which goes back to you and your story. Don't give up. Just be relentless. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. We do want book signings. We want to let Kate sign some books. So could we have a couple more questions from kids, and one right there?
Do you ever feel like you need a break from writing books?
Do I ever feel like I need a break from writing books? I will take a small break in between writing books, but what I find is that I need to be writing. It gives me comfort, and it gives me ballast, and it helps me make sense out of the world. So it's like less do I need a break, and more I hope I get to keep on doing it. Yeah.
And a last question. Where, Tom? Up. Oh, way up there. Okay, right up at the top.
On the back of my book, the Hotel Balzaar, it says every moment is a story in the making. Is that true with your life?
Let's just have a moment.
There's a Carrie Miller in the making.
I was going to
right
say.
There.
Do
Yeah.
you recognize this kid?
Right. Yes.
I have lots of things to say to you. One, you not only do you have some journalistic chops, but also you have an ear for the poetic, and also, I mean, could we have it is the most perfect last question.
It is.
Because it is, yes, for all of us, it's true. That's the beautiful thing about books, is that they remind us of that. And it's one of the things that I love most about reading, is that you can see that you can take action and change your life. That is what I have learned from books. And so, yes, every moment. How does it go? I don't write the ad copy on the back, so how does it go? Every moment is a story. That's true for all of us. And so thank you so much for all of you believing in the power of story. All you teachers who are out there reading to your class, you librarians who are telling little 8-year-olds that they are true readers, thank you for what you do.
Kate, thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.